All right, welcome everyone and to the viewers at home and to all the task force members. Today is June 10th, 2021, and I'm going to call the Universal Basic Income Task Force to order at 6:04 p.m. I'm going to start. My name is Adam Murphy. I'm an executive assistant for City Council. I am filling in temporarily for David Grant, who is in a concurrent meeting, and he'll be joining us later on. So I'm going to start with roll call. And if just signify by saying here, present, something like that, and it can be recorded. David Grant, Carolyn Anderson.
Here.
Colleen Bennett.
Here.
Eric Brunner. Amanda Detmer.
Here.
Gina Rosich.
Here.
And Stephen Ross.
Here.
And we have a quorum. I'm going to start with public comment. If there is an individual from the public, if you'd like to take a few moments, give your thoughts, now would be the time to do so. I do ask that you would state your name and either your address in Hartford or wherever and your affiliation, just for the record.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Supriyo SB Chatterjee, or just SB for short. I primarily work in healthcare policy and technology. I'm in the Office of Health Strategy, the Consumer Advisory Council member. I'm also a Connecticut Health Foundation Fellows with a focus on health equity. I write a lot of testimonials and briefs for legislative purposes and also various groups, healthcare related. And this caught my eye. I'm also an economist at UBI. Rather than give you a long-winded bio, what I'm going to do is I was planning to write a 2-page public comment and submit it today, but I've done the research for it, but I'll wait till the next time. That is another 2 weeks from now. But what I will do is I will post 2 links to 2 different papers, which will give you a background of my interest. I want to be kind of the fly on the wall, so to speak, with your project. And next time when we meet, I'll submit a written paper as to what I have in mind. And it's basically to see the overlaps between UBI and health equity and how it will contribute, say, towards Medicaid. More than likely, UBI, your UBI, I guess, patient, if I may call them that, participants will be also Medicaid participants. So my focus is really on the overlap of that. I'm coming from the public health program side. So I'll post 2 links that'll give you a background as to what my research interest is. And then I'll follow up in another 2 weeks. Thank you for your time.
And thank you very much for joining, and we look forward to reading them. And if I believe if you send them to David Grant, he can send it out to all of the task force members. Thank you. Thank you again. To our next item on the agenda, the approval of the minutes from May 27th. I do understand that the minutes were sent out earlier today. So in understanding everyone has jobs and a lot of other things that they're working on, if we did want to, we could approve the minutes at the following meeting, giving everyone ample time to read through them, send any corrections, and do it that way instead of approving them today without objection.
I have not had the chance to read them yet, so I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I did read them, but I'm also fine with that.
I'm fine with that.
Me too.
Awesome. That works.
And Adam,
Yeah.
I have one minor correction. Do you want me to wait on that, or
You can you could share it now and I can write it down and make the correction before our next meeting, or you can email me and I'll be happy to make the correction.
I could just tell you what it is. It's
Yep.
pretty straightforward. In section 6B, the first paragraph, it just stated that I sort of recommended that Mayor Bronin be part of the task force, where it was more along the lines of, I was recommending or thought we should look into seeing if he would be part of the MGI, Mayors for Guaranteed Income, not part of our task force.
Duly noted. I will make the correction before our next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
In our next section, we're talking about working groups versus the public meeting. I think it might be a good starting point if, Amanda, if you would not mind speaking just a little bit about Asana as a platform, and then we could have our discussion on the working groups and then come back to Asana at the end, voting for it.
Sure, I can do that. I also don't know if it might be helpful, but I can screen share Asana right now for folks to see. Or I could just talk about it.
I would like to see the screen share. I don't know how other people feel.
Sure. Yeah.
I
So
would too.
okay. So I had received from David, based on our last discussions, some initial ideas for 2 working groups or subgroups from this task force, and then within those kind of major components of each group. And so that right now is just how I've set up Asana. So I should back up. Asana is an online project management tool that is free to use. And I have, I found it very useful in managing all kinds of projects professionally in my research lab. And, you know, you can assign individual tasks to people, you can put priorities, you can put due dates, and you can really do a whole lot with this free tool. So based on David's initial kind of subgroup ideas, I set up Asana, but we can definitely modify it as needed. So I'm going to screen share. Oh, Adam, are you able to give me screen sharing privileges?
Yes, and I greatly apologize. I'm typically not the host of these meetings. Is there a way you can request it?
I don't know. It just says host disabled participant screen sharing. I'm not sure if you're able to, the way I've gotten around it in the past is to temporarily make me a co-host.
I think you would be able to screen share right now,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
There we go. That's coming. Yeah. Okay. There we go. So can everyone see this kind of web page? Okay. So to look and see what Asana looks like on the home screen when you first log in, and I've also invited every member of the task force to join. So check your emails for those messages from Asana. You also might want to just check your junk mail in case it went there. And so here I have several teams already, but we have UBI task force here, and it lists our members. And then here are the 2 subgroups that we're starting to think about, the planning subgroup and the implementation subgroup. So if we were to click on each one, right now, based on input from David, we have these 4 sort of major areas for the planning subgroup. How to identify participants, research questions we would want to answer, development of the pre and post survey, and then program design. And what we can do is within each one of those, you can write a task name. So this is just an example to show you how it works in real time. ID participants, and then you can type in one of the people who are on the team, and then you can give the thing a due date. You can also add priority list and other things like that. So I'm going to delete that task. So right now there's no specific task because we as a task force have not decided what we want to do yet. But then just looking at the implementation subgroup, the major areas under that working group would be participant support, funding distribution, survey development during, I'm guessing this means during the program. Maybe David can answer this for us a little bit later. I wasn't exactly sure what this meant. And then a community education plan. And then over here on the left side, we can add more projects. We can add team members. So that's really the gist of it. So I'm going to stop sharing now so we can discuss.
That looks great.
Yeah.
My understanding too is there are like YouTube tutorials that sort of outline how to use it as well.
Yeah, there are. I haven't watched any yet. I'll be honest. It's been for me when I used it for research, kind of on the job training, but that is a good reminder. Probably would have been a little more efficient if I watched some YouTube videos. Yes.
Is there I just had two sort of functional thoughts. One is a place to park resources, links, literature review stuff.
Yeah, so yes, so I've done that already in my kind of lab team, and say we have, like, we're working on a research manuscript, and you can upload files, and that would go under when you create an actual task. Then within that task, you can upload individual files, you can make notes on the files and things like that.
Okay. And then for each of those little sections, if we have back and forth conversations, is there like a running log like you would have an email? Like, just
So
kind of
question. So I know that you can chat, because I have done this already. You can kind of do what's the equivalent of a chat with team members within the task, and then you post it and it shows up here. I'll screen share one more time because I think it'll be easier. So I again created this ID participants fake task, and you can have an assigned it or given a due date, but here is where you could add more detail about the task. You can add subtasks within, and then this is like the chat function. So I could write something, and then a member could write back. And then you can also, this is the window where I've added files before. Up here, you can attach files. You can put in web links and subtasks. So yeah, there is a way to be able to kind of comment, kind of like you would on Google Docs or something like that.
thank you.
Does anyone else have other questions while I share? Okay.
I do have one follow-up question that doesn't need to be screen shared. Within, I guess, the working groups, all members that are included in it would be able to kind of view comments and things that are going on in the opposite working group. Okay.
That's my understanding, yes, but I would have to confirm, yeah. So say I was on the planning subgroup but not implementation. I actually am not sure about that. I think so because we're all on under the umbrella team, but we'll have to confirm on that.
And also the conversation that we had at the last meeting was that there is considerable overlap. So
Yeah.
some folks may only be in one of the subgroups and other folks are going to be actively in both.
Right. So maybe a way to think about using this would be all members are part of both subgroups on Asana, but our understanding is that, there's 3 or 4 people primarily working on one and 3 or 4 people primarily working on the other. And then in that way, we would be assured that people from the other group could comment and things like that.
Can all members add tasks?
So yeah, so as the project developer, I would give each member editing privileges or whatever the equivalent is, and then you would be able to add tasks or subtasks.
Mm-hmm.
I think is there any other questions about Asana just before moving forward into the next discussion?
Nope.
I think that it was a really good segue in terms of talking about overlapping responsibilities, because that was a major topic of discussion at the last meeting. If we wanted to move forward with Asana, is that allowing kind of all members who are interested to kind of view what other groups are doing. If the working groups was the way that we wanted to go, and I think to summarize, from my perspective, the conversation that was occurring last time was that there will be overlap, and that essentially working groups can't be working in a silo, but there will be times when a member of one working group has an interest and a specialty in something the other working group might be working on. They might sort of transition over and assist, if I'm not mistaken or mischaracterizing the last conversation. And I guess to kind of kick off the conversation about working groups that you all can have, we spoke last time about the importance of, I guess, from an efficient standpoint, so everyone's time is used wisely, and the breadth of what this task force has to accomplish. Having those working groups with sort of topical areas of interest. I greatly apologize for a cat that is meowing outside of my door. It is dinner time, and I'm watching her today, and that is the Zoom world that we live in. We spoke about the fact that members might be able to switch from one group to another depending on the project that the working group is working on. So if a member has a specialty and the other working group is working on something, switch over and kind of help and assist in any way using all of our resources efficiently. In addition to, we meet twice a month for an hour, and there's a lot to accomplish. So having working groups that are offline to get all that work done is important, with the idea that these meetings, the sort of meetings of the whole, serve as a way for the working groups to come together and say, here's what we've been working on, here's our updates, as well as gauge sort of public opinion, see members of the public that want to comment on the great work that everyone is doing, but making sure that the breadth of what we have to accomplish is still being done. From like an administrative standpoint, I would say that with 6 members of a task force, a quorum is when 4 or more members are meeting together at one point, which qualifies as a public meeting, which requires a public notice, whether down the line it's in person or virtual. So sort of the idea that David had is if it's 3 and 3 meeting at once, that qualifies as a working group meeting. If there are times when there are more people coming to a working group meeting, we obviously have no problem setting out public notice and agendas and all of that, but we just want to make sure that all of your time is used efficiently as possible. I would also say that the working groups that David sent out, and speaking with him, their suggestions, and obviously the conversation today, we can change sort of how they're set up, and it's really up to all of you. They were just sent as a recommendation. So if anyone wants to comment and kind of start talking about what each working group would be doing, or sort of any questions or concerns, now please do.
I think as we move forward with the work, it will grow organically, you know, the practical application of it.
And I definitely think they are organic working groups in the sense that things are going to come up down the line that it might not be in those original 4 bullet points that David put, but it's definitely an area that that group wants to look into. And it's what you're doing in this discovery phase and planning phase is what's important. So things could be added. It's just kind of anything within the theme can really be addressed by the working group. For the purpose of members of the public watching, the 2 sort of frameworks for working groups that we had was one that's going to be doing planning, where they might be talking about participant identification, research questions, pre and post survey development, program design, a second working group working on the implementation, which is participation support, funding distribution, I believe it's survey during the development, and community education plan. Are there any thoughts or things you'd want to see added to those 2 sort of initial purviews that have been included?
May I ask a question, please?
Go ahead, sir.
No, just SB. SB would be fine, so it's not necessary. Are you, in your implementation plan, is that been developed already, or is that available to look at, review?
So
Rather, the plan itself?
that would be something that would be tackled by the working group itself. Right now, we're just talking as the task force is moving forward, creating the working groups that are going to address what you just mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
It's hard to hear it read and process it. If you could actually share the written down bullets you just read to us, then we could actually see it. It's hard when you read something real quickly, where if you were sharing it and it was on our screen, it would be easier for us. I was looking through my emails. I'm not finding this list on any of my emails that I've received from David.
I'll put them in the chat.
I can put them in the chat. That would be perfect.
Putting them in the chat is great.
It's in the email that he sent this morning that included the minutes and the agenda.
Oh, but it wasn't part of the attachment. It was below. I see. I see.
I will include it in the chat right here. I apologize if the formatting is slightly funky. But right there in the chat now, you'll see planning for one group and then implementation for the other.
I see. Okay.
I'm assuming that that means the research component and the actual program delivery component. The program delivery discussions is the implementation, and then the
That's how I
other
read it too, Gina. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
I said that's how I read it too.
and the planning is the research piece, because the planning can also include the implementation piece. I just want to make sure I understand the language.
So it might be worthwhile to almost rename implementation program. I'm sorry, what was?
My suggestion would be that we have one as the research piece, and then the other one is program implementation.
You could call it evaluation design or something like that.
Yeah, evaluation design and program implementation. That's a great idea.
I was looking at it along the same lines, that one group would be sort of program management, you know, talking about like communications, community support, the timing, and then the other is the research and analysis and evaluation. Like more, you know, the logistics part and the planning, and then that full research piece of it too.
Yeah, 100%. You know, for example, I've identified some potential agencies that we could work with. That would go in the implementation piece, right? You know, as we come up with other ideas.
And almost, you know, I don't know what everyone thinks, but maybe switch it to like program management, and the other group would be research, that kind of a piece, because it seems like we go on longer than implementation. There's so many pieces to it potentially.
I agree, and I think those changes could be made for to make it more clear what the two different working groups would be. I agree.
And as everyone said, it'll grow, right, and change as we get into it. But to me, it seems like a good basic start.
I'd also like to suggest under the program evaluation piece that we have, I don't even know what to call a section, I guess, specifically for resources, you know, articles, websites, and so on, that everyone can look at and then draw from. You're muted.
Sorry. Probably would be smart to have something like that for both, I would think. References or resources.
And I would ask, within Asana, do you think that would be, is that a possibility for just a section that would just be resources and things to pull from?
Yep, absolutely. I've done it already, or a very similar thing. Mm-hmm.
Do you know if there are limitations on the number of files, or, you know, things that we can upload?
That's a really good question, and I don't know, but I bet the answer would be easy to find. I can try to research that while we're sitting here.
I would ask, are there any initial thoughts on things that, with the new names in mind for the two groups, any sort of key points that you would want to add to sort of that initial list, which we have acknowledged is organic and growing?
Are you still sharing that?
It is it's currently in the chat.
Okay. I saw it, now I lost it, sorry. No need to, I don't want to hold you up.
If there are any other ideas sort of that you want under the initial purview of the working group, I think between now and the next meeting, our idea would be that if this is an idea that we want to move forward with, email David and myself and say, I'm interested in sort of working primarily with this group, that group, and then if you do that within the next week, Dave and I will work to arrange the folks that are on one working group, arrange something so that they can meet before the next meeting, and then the same with the other group, whether it be by Zoom, Teams, whatever the preferred method is for each group. That way that we can at least have a starting point where those folks meet and those folks meet, and then we can kind of really get the ball rolling on hammering down the individual topics we have. So any other initial thoughts on that, or I guess closing statements on that topic before we move forward?
I just want to say that I found an answer to your question, Gina, and I put it in the chat, but for those watching, there is no limit to the number of files you can upload. There's 100 megabyte per file limit. So if it's larger than that, then you can store it on Dropbox or Google Drive or wherever, and then put a hyperlink to it on Asana.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Oh, under implementation, I think this would be the better place to discuss participants. It's kind of an overlap between the two, but how participants will provide us with their info. Oh, you know what? Never mind. During survey development is a kind of an odd turn of phrase, but I think it might actually be what I'm thinking of, which is how we will receive certain kinds of information from folks while they're participating in the study.
I believe that was David's intent, yes.
Okay. So we might want to fiddle with that name as we, off camera, think about it.
And
I have just one quick comment for participant identification. It seems like that would be across subgroups and maybe be worthwhile to address at one of these meetings, because, there's the logistics part of it. And then, the research part, I'm sure would want to, have an opinion on, who's identified to be a participant and how they are. So that seems like a really worthy topic to go across both subgroups.
And that would definitely be one of the topics that in one of these meetings, the twice-month meetings, that kind of both groups might have ideas of how they want it done. And then in this forum, in this setting, that sort of the two ideas to be discussed or find a conclusion. I think that'd be a really smart use of those resources. Mm-hmm. I guess from there, if there is no more discussion, obviously, if you have other ideas, feel free to email them and we can distribute them out to the rest of the task force. We can move forward, as these would be kind of a starting point for working groups in the next week. Please email David and myself and we'll arrange everyone and do all those logistic scheduling things. And so the working groups can start meeting and get the ball rolling on that topic. The thing that we have next on the agenda is voting as a group to approve the use of Asana as sort of the official working document that we're going to have as a task force, in the way that we're going to go about that. So without objection, I would accept a motion to endorse the task force use of Asana for this working group.
So moved.
Moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Without objection, I'll take a voice vote. All those in favor of using Asana, please signify by saying, or is there any discussion? Sorry. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of using Asana, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, all those abstaining. Thank you, everyone. And then I would open it up to either questions or comments from the task force members, if we have any that we would like to talk about. Amanda?
Wow. Okay, I wasn't expecting to go first. Yeah. Now that we know what tool we're going to use to manage the project, I think I don't know about everyone else, it feels a little bit daunting and overwhelming to know the best first place to get started. So I guess that's just the biggest thing in the forefront of my mind is, what's the most productive way to get started so that we can make the most efficient use of our time and move this project forward.
Well, one big thing that David was supposed to tell us that is sort of critical is this issue of randomization or not. And in our last discussion, we pushed David had said that he had funders who were interested in funding this further, but they wanted to see evidence. And I asked him whether what they want to see is evidence on successful implementation, in which case this could be thought of as a small pilot project that is entirely sort of a demonstration of being able to launch it, or whether they really need to see evidence on effectiveness, in which case we have to think of this as being a study that's going to have randomization with a control group. And I don't know whether David has gotten any feedback from the foundations on that, but that would sort of be a critical piece of feedback that we need in terms of how to think about the priorities and where to put limited resources. Another big question we face that needs to be addressed sooner rather than later is sort of a population from which we would draw our 25. Again, even that decision is shaped to some extent. If we just need 25 people who will do this because this is about showing that we can pull it, that the city of Hartford can pull it off, that's different than if this is an evaluation and we might make some different decisions in terms of how we want to develop our sample of treatment and control individuals. Regardless, however we're going to be doing that, we do want to be moving towards finalizing that decision earlier rather than later also.
I think that's probably one of several of the pressing priorities. I think that I don't want to speak for David in this sense, and I'm hoping he's able to join us to speak to that topic. I think that between now and the next meeting, when the working groups convene, I'm hoping David's going to be able to speak to both groups and kind of have a better idea of that to share with the task force members. So that way, when we come to the following meeting that's on the 24th, we can kind of come together as a group and then prioritize different tasks and all what you just mentioned.
And it really all falls under, goals and mission, right? Is to establish what the goals are, what the mission, and then the project sort of grows and develops from there.
100%. I wanted to share in the chat for those maybe members of the public who are interested in this topic, as well as the members of the group, the Guaranteed Income Community of Practice, which Dr. West had informed me about. And I put the link in the chat just of resources, which includes a rich amount of information for folks to look at in terms of literature reviews, program evaluation and income research, program design resources. So in terms of getting started, we can also look at what other folks have done as we start to put our thoughts together, however we decide to move in terms of the overall direction.
I apologize. I was copying, pasting all the comments so they could be included in the future minutes. I think that right now our immediate step could be the working groups starting, David connecting with folks that can kind of lay the groundwork for the resources, limitations, research questions that are going to be asked, because those are both important for goals and sort of the outcome that we want, ensuring that all of our time is used efficiently, and all of you are very busy people. So I guess that would be the first step that I have in my mind.
I also wouldn't mind, I've never used Asana, but I just love like the detail of project planning. I wouldn't mind getting out and sort of messing with it and, you know, putting in, and I could talk to David about it, you know, whatever Adam, you and he feel are appropriate, but I could start putting in tasks, because maybe that'll help us once we have the goals and missions to kind of figure out what comes next, you know, whether it's identify participants or whatever, because that always helps me, you know, to sort of, you know, put all that information in, and then it sort of becomes more clear what steps have to come, you know, first.
Absolutely. And I think that over the next, well, tomorrow I have it first on my list is going into Asana and learning the ins and outs and watching some
Right,
YouTube
yeah.
tutorials. So I was planning to send out.
My goal
if
is
anyone's
not to mess
interested-
it all up.
I plan to just send out YouTube tutorials to the task force in case anyone else needed the video demonstration. Like I know I will. I will be doing that tomorrow. And I guess, are there any other comments that we want to talk to before we sort of break up for this evening, and then we have our action steps to start with our working groups before our next 24th meeting?
I have just one thing, which is a follow-up from the last meeting when David had asked about the discussion I had with Dr. West. And I mean, this will obviously go in the Asana, but just so everybody knows, the one crucial thing in terms of participants is that the only group we will not be able to include is anybody who has a family member receiving SSI. For any other kind of benefit, $500 or $1,000 can be considered a gift where they won't have to count it as income at risk losing their benefits. But SSI does not have that gift option. So you know, if you have a single parent with a child on SSI, for example, or, you know, a family member on their budget receiving SSI, they would have to be excluded from this.
Could you just explain what SSI is?
SSI is supplemental security income. It is people who are unable to work, but who do not qualify for SSD, which is Social Security disability, or who do not qualify for Social Security retirement income.
Thank you very much.
Now, Amanda's saying that, I'm sorry. What about if somebody's getting like SNAP benefits? Would they be qualified?
Yes, because
Okay.
that'll be part of and that would go in the implementation section, is negotiating with benefits providers around the reporting of this information so people don't lose their benefits. And SNAP benefits is 100% one of those where people can receive gifts and not lose their SNAP.
What about child support? The child support always want you to report everything to them. Will child support be considered letting them know that the families are getting this money?
That's something that we will again have to work out with the
state.
administrators of child support.
I think she's right though. Child support is different than SNAP, right? Because child support
Right.
is going to be court. Every child support order is going to be administered by court as an individual case. So you don't have an agency you can negotiate with when it comes to child support. Unlike SNAP.
Does Connecticut not have a child support enforcement unit that handles an
They do.
But that doesn't change the fact that the child support itself is an individual court order by an individual judge. And so it's going to be treated very differently than a public benefit that's administered through a state or federal agency.
The child support, actually, this brings up another question, is whether we're talking about someone who is paying child support or someone who is receiving child support who's in the program. So that's something else that we have to think about.
If I thought we were focusing primarily on single parents who have children living with them. I guess the single parent with a child living with them could have another child that they were paying child support for.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
with 100 people, the odds of that happening is really, really low. So
Yeah.
I think the main issue is going to be people here who are receiving child
We'll
support.
see.
I will send a follow-up email to see how they navigated that. And also I'll look through the literature and see if there's anything. But thank you so much. That was really an excellent question.
One thing from my end, at the last meeting, we spoke about community input meeting. And we have a tentative plan for the end of July that we think will give the community enough notice that we are seeking input and giving us enough time to reach out to program providers and sort of different folks that can come and provide their support. So we have a tentative plan for the end of July. I just wanted to, we spoke about it last time, so I want to let everyone know.
And everything will be Zoom. It won't be in person. We just be Zoom for the community.
That is currently the executive order that sets up for virtual meetings is in place till July 20th. That is an ongoing sort of debacle that's way above me. And
Right.
but obviously there'll be due notice. I personally like the accessibility of Zoom meetings, but I also understand the accessibility of in-person meetings. So that is something that we're still going to be working out.
Okay.
It'd be nice to have the community forum, on our agenda for next time, kind of at the top of the agenda for planning.
Duly noted, community forum.
Yeah.
Does the task force
Thanks.
do we need to, self-assign to subgroups or right now before we try to work offline, or is that not yet?
I was thinking giving everyone sort of maybe the rest of the evening, tomorrow, the next day to sort of digest and think about where they would like to see themselves. And then David and I will sort of gather all the information and then sort of organize and get everyone connected. That way it all works out smoothly by the next meeting.
Okay, and one more time, could you tell me the new names of the two groups, and then I'll just change them in Asana.
One was going to be research or something with a title that was more research based. So I believe it was research, evaluation, analysis.
Okay.
The other one was more around program implementation and logistics. Please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone.
That sounds good.
Yeah, or program management, same sort of thing.
Great.
Adam, you can put me in the program management one. That's an easy decision.
Unless, are there any other comments or questions people would like to share for the good of the order this evening? Or I'm not sure if David's going to be able to make it on before we adjourn.
No, I'm just eager to get stuff onto the Asana that I've been working on.
Oh, one other thing that I really love about this is when tasks are assigned to people, it immediately sends them an email. And if it has a due date, it does that as well. And then you can set reminders. It's just, I love it. I think it really keeps you on, on task.
Perfect. Colleen and I were actually working offline through email earlier this week. Gathering sort of a lot of we spoke at the last meeting about providers and resources that are operating in Hartford. And I'm compiling a list of all the great knowledge. So if anyone does have another either nonprofit service provider operating in the Hartford space around sort of what we talked about at the last meeting, please feel free to send it to me. And then what I'm going to do is create a list of all the providers and nonprofits, whoever, create a small summary for the task force members to kind of see quickly, here's what they do, here's the population that they serve, as well as the contact information for them. So it can serve as a resource for the task force in the future, if we wanted someone's insight on topic X, Y, and Z, we wanted to be able to connect with someone in the future, and then obviously I'll be uploading that somehow to Asana.
I located some agencies that have programs around benefits, services, case management. So I didn't contact any of them, obviously. I was just doing my background research. So I will send those to you.
Thank you.
Hold on,
Are there,
Sarah.
what's that, Colleen?
Did you get my email, Adam? I did send some agents to you last night, another one this morning. And I did reach out to some of them, but I did not talk to all of them.
I did. Thank you.
Okay.
I added them to the list. I apologize. I didn't have a chance to respond.
It's okay.
evening.
You're all busy.
If there is no further comments and with no objection, I would like to adjourn this evening's meeting at 6:50. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody.
See you
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.